Welcome to MedicalSalesU. I'm your host, Dave Stair. Today's guest is Vidhi Patel. She is from Columbus, Ohio. We have her in the studio, and she joined our program. Vidhi, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to share my story.
Yes, Vidhi, we are so excited because you joined our program. You reached out to me. You're an on-site specialist at Stryker. You called me. I think we connect on LinkedIn, and we saw the Ohio connection, and you just landed a job with Hologic in their breast and skeletal health in sales. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to start starting next week. Can't wait.
Yes. Well, I think this, we just want to hear your story a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about college. We'll talk about growing up in Ohio. You just mentioned to me off air that you actually grew up in Hilliard. That's where I live.
Yeah. Yeah. Right down the road.
Okay. That's great. And you, so what high school did you graduate from?
I went to Hilliard Darby.
Okay.
Yeah. There's 3 high schools. I went to Darby.
Did you always know that you were going to go to the Ohio State? Or did you always know that that's where you're going to go to college?
That's actually a funny question. So my dad went to Ohio State.
Okay.
A lot of family members went to Ohio State. And because of that, with it being 20 minutes down the road, I was like, you know what? This is going to be my backup school. Yeah. I don't want to go here.
Oh.
I mean, I grew up going to football games, be on campus. My older cousins went. I've been on campus before. And funny enough, I was like, you know what? I'll just go somewhere else for undergrad, come back to Ohio State for grad school. That didn't work out. But ended up going, loved my time there. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Was there any place you were trying to go to? Did you say, I want to go to this state? Where were you wanting to go to?
Yeah, I really wanted to go to UNC.
Really? Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. Yep, that's it. I toured Duke too. Actually got waitlisted, but that was years ago.
Yes.
But yeah, I saved a lot of money going to Ohio State. It's in the family.
Yes.
Grew up with it 20 minutes down the road. So yeah, it was a good choice.
The great thing about Ohio State is they have really, shot up in their rankings as well.
They have, yeah.
And even their medical school, they're in the top 25. So, great school. I am curious there. You mentioned master's degree. Did you get a master's degree, or have you ever thought about that, or going back?
Yeah, I have thought about it. I was trying to pursue, and still kind of am. It'll depend on where my career trajectory goes.
Yes.
MBA. Okay. So that's always been really in the cards for me. My parents have pushed it. I think this point in my career, I don't really think it's necessary. It might be something I kind of look into in the future, but I don't currently have one, just have a bachelor's, but in the future, maybe I'll go back to school. We'll see. Wow.
Well, your career it's going to just keep growing. This is a great step. This is a position at Hologic that a lot of people seek after, but you've been an on-site specialist at Stryker. Tell us a little bit about that role. It's not a sales role. What is that role? And can you even walk us back to how you even landed that position? Yeah, of course. I'll kind of give you a background. So after graduating from Ohio State, I graduated with biology. And for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a physician. And, with COVID taking up bulk of my college career, I wasn't necessarily still wanting to go that route, but I still wanted to be within medicine and maybe do some business with it as well. I had a business minor too. And so after I graduated, I landed a role in clinical research, and I was coordinating studies phase 1 through 4. I coordinated over 30 plus studies for biotech and pharma companies. Over 30 studies? Yeah. I had over 30 studies that you were doing this for. A ton. We had Eli Lilly, we had Roche. I can't really remember. A lot of them were confidential. Ones, yes. Yeah, but a lot of them, we were testing a lot of pharma. We had some medical devices here and there, but a lot of it was like drug manufacturing. But it wasn't as hands-on as I want it to be. I know it gave me a lot of insight of how it works, how the testing and the studies are really crucial and beneficial to patients who take these drugs. But in the end, I was working behind the scenes. I wanted to be hands-on. I wanted to be right in the front. And so I was doing some research and came across medical devices. And for me, it was perfect, right? You get to own your growth. You get to work with patients in some divisions. You get to work with the doctors, work with the physicians, grow these relationships and maintain them. And I thought it was perfect. And for the longest time, I was trying to break into it, but without a sales background, I found, at least from my experience interviewing, it was really hard to break into. And so that's how I landed with on-site specialist.
with on-site specialists, it's, at least with Stryker, it's not really a clinical specialist role. I know you've talked about that role in the past and on a few of your podcast episodes, but it's more customer facing. So you still manage instrument trays. You're in sterile processing, so you're in charge of cleaning the trays, also assembling them, making sure they're ready for surgery. And then you have that customer facing role where you provide support in the OR with the surgeons and physicians. And there, you're working with Stryker tech, making sure that with a lot of these surgeries, on-site specialist is only applicable to endoscopy procedures, minimally invasive procedures. And so with these procedures, you have a scope and camera, and you need to make sure this tech is working so the surgeon is able to see what they're doing in the surgery.
Wow. What did you enjoy most about that role? You had it for a while.
Yeah.
What was it that you enjoyed?
I think the biggest thing was just making the relationships. When I was up in the OR, I was making relationships with OR staff, with nurses, with the surgeons. But I also got to do a little bit behind the scenes as well with sterile processing, with the SPD director and the director of surgery. And so building all of these relationships, it really helps you not only in your day-to-day with your job, right? But also when you're trying to advance in your career, anybody's able to help you out.
And you had this role for about how long?
I think a little over a year and a half, I would say.
A year and a half.
Yep.
At what point did you think, okay, I want to start looking for this next opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
I have this experience. I've been around, physicians. I've seen the patients. I've worked as a team. I've collaborated. Mm-hmm. I am now ready to jump into sales. Mm-hmm. When did this start happening that you started looking around and kind of getting your eye out there?
I would say I was always interested in sales. So I knew, at least in my experience, I wanted to do at least a year in this role. Because I feel like if you leave before a year, it doesn't look that great. But also transitioning, if I were to get a role within Stryker, I would have to be in this position for a year. So I knew at least by the year mark, I wanted to get a new job, preferably in sales. Mm-hmm. But around the 6-month mark, I really gave myself time to really understand my current work responsibilities, make sure I got everything covered. And once I was able to be proficient in all my responsibilities, I knew that now was the time to start branching out, networking, seeing what's all out there, seeing all the opportunities out there, and kind of work towards them.
If you look back at that year and a half as an on-site specialist, what area in your own life do you think that you grew the most as a professional?
Yeah, I would say definitely time management.
Okay.
It's not, at least for my role as an on-site, I had 3 different schedules. And so, in medical device.
3 different schedules.
I did. Yeah. It was rough. I had one week or 2 weeks from 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Then I had 2 weeks, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then 5 weeks, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.
And I think that's when we connected.
Yeah.
And you joined our program because I know that sometimes you couldn't make the calls because you were working.
Yeah.
And how did you reach out to me? How did we get connected? It was through LinkedIn, right?
It was. Yeah. So never underestimate the power of LinkedIn. Yes. I remember I wasn't connected with you, but a lot of my connections were interacting with your posts. And so I was like, who's this Dave guy? Maybe I should reach out. And I saw you were in Columbus. Major player in med device and in pharma. You were posting about a bunch of stuff on, how to do better in interviews, how to really sell yourself. And as someone who at the time was trying to break into sales for around 2 years, I kind of leaned in and did some reflecting. I was like, what am I doing wrong where I'm not able to get these roles? And so I saw that you had a program with coaching, with community, and, I took that leap, and here we are.
We're glad you joined. I think that was around the end of the year. And I know that you came here in person in December when we filmed and had about 15 people here. And then you landed this job. It took about 3 months, 4 months? How long did it take for you to actually land the role as in your new role with Hologic?
Yeah, with the program, I think like you said, I started in December. Okay. I started interviewing for this job, I would say end of January, early February. So it took about a month. It moved pretty fast. Yeah.
That is always a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
Tell us about that process. How did you reach out to Hologic? You saw the posting. Walk us through that.
Yeah, actually, I got really lucky in the sense that a recruiter reached out to me. Okay. So at the time, I knew that Hologic had this role open, but based off of the criteria that I had for the role, I didn't think I was senior enough to take it.
Now, was this an external recruiter or an internal recruiter with their own company?
It was external, but the funny thing is he used to work for Hologic.
Okay.
He was a regional sales manager before he became a recruiter.
So he was well connected with
Yes,
Hologic.
He was.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was so lucky in that sense. Also, with him being a sales manager, him having the confidence that I would do well in the role really helped me. Also, as well as his connections really helped me get face-to-face time with the people that we're hiring.
Tell us about that role, because that is something let's back up a little bit, actually. Yeah. Let's talk about working with the recruiter first, because in our process, we often say that working with an external recruiter has its challenges, because sometimes you're competing against all these people that have more experience, and that recruiter is working with all of them. You won over this recruiter and you made an impact, but tell us a little bit about what did that working relationship, what did that look like? Initial phone calls, resume? At any point, did you give him a business plan? What did that look like?
Yeah, I honestly, I have never worked with a recruiter before. So this was my first time kind of, charting or navigating through this territory. But he had reached out to me, said, hey, I have this fantastic role for you in Columbus, Ohio. You have 5 minutes, would love to chat. And I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I was trying to go for every opportunity out there. I really invested in myself. I don't want to close the door on something that I haven't even heard of. And so I took the call with him, and he had, given me the breakdown of the role. He had also mentioned that he worked for Hologic in the past. And so just knowing that alone, I thought I would have a good chance with the role. But he was super helpful, I think. And I do want to credit him for, getting me that far and in front of the right people. But I also don't want to take away the amount of work I also put in. I think a recruiter is a fantastic way to, get yourself in front of the hiring managers. But ultimately, it's really up to you to make sure that you come in with a strong reason of why you want the job, what is so great about the company that you want to work there. You want to come in with your 30, 60, 90. You want to make sure that you're networking with all the reps. I think, like I said, a recruiter can only get you so far. And I'm really glad that he was able to get me to where I needed to be. But ultimately, as you go through the interview process, it's really up to you to make sure you sell yourself the best.
When you had that interview with Hologic, what did you do to prepare for it?
Yeah, I had around 4 interviews. So I had two interviews with a director and a sales manager. Then I took a personality test called the Gallup. Yes. Stryker is known for them. Hologic does it as well. And then I had a role play / case study as my last interview, where I had to drive out to Indiana to do it in person. And so I would say it was fairly easy. I think just practicing your STAR answers, knowing your why, knowing the product line as well, and also having the day-to-day. I think the most important thing is making sure when you're going through these interviews, you want to make sure you're networking with the reps on your team, outside of your team. I think it's great to ask the managers, the day-to-day surface level questions. Yes. And for me specifically, I never want to go in with surface level questions, because I believe it seems like I haven't done the work.
Yeah, that's so true, because sometimes people come in and they ask these.
It's like, what's your day-to-day? Yeah. And it's like, you should know that.
You should know these things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we were taught in school, there's no such thing as a dumb question. There is such a thing as dumb questions. If you could have found out on your own, right, and you come to this interview asking these questions, do your research beforehand, so that when you have that conversation, it's insightful, you're providing value. And that's so good. Now I'm curious here with our program, you knew a lot of this stuff already. Right. What was some takeaways from our program? What are some things that maybe helped you along the way?
Yeah, I would say the 30, 60, 90 day plan was the biggest thing for me. Okay. I think when I was going for these sales roles before, I wasn't creating that plan. Okay. And I know it's really big with pharma, making sure that you have the FDA and the clinical trials and making sure that you know all about the drug that you're selling. But I think with medical devices, it's a little harder because sometimes you don't know the entire portfolio. Like your portfolio could be massive. It could be just a few products. But I think regardless of that, just coming in and making sure you know what you want to achieve in the first 90 days is the biggest thing. And that shows the hiring manager too that, you've done your research. You're going to come in, hit the ground running. And so I think that's the biggest thing is just making sure that when you're filling out your 30, 60, 90, and the help of AI too helps. Yes. If you kind of struggle with your words, if you have that base level knowledge of what you're going to be selling and doing in the territory, I think with the use of AI, it helps you craft a better response and get that into a template. And that was probably the biggest thing I've learned when going through the program.
Yes. And in our program, when we talk about the 30, 60, 90, there's some tips there that we give. And, I remember my first ever job, I didn't know how to break in. And a guy who internally referred me, I got in later in life. I was 35. And I said, if you ever hear of something, let me know. He's like, I'm going to get you an interview. Yeah. I'm going to refer you. And then he's like, let me take a look at your business plan. I'm like, he said, your brag book. I'm like, I don't even have one. Yeah. And so I created one and I met with another IT sales guy who was very successful. His best years, he would make $1 million a year. He didn't always do that, but on a great year, that's what he did. And he took a look at my business plan and said, I need to really work my 30, 60, 90. I didn't know anything about it. And I looked online, and a lot of people had these general ones. You're exactly right. With AI, we can do a very good 30, 60, 90. But I say for our audience listening, we want to go in there and tweak it, make it our own. Right. Don't just do everything.
No copy and paste.
No copy and paste. And we talk about 9 things. We talk about having the product that you are going to sell, but also understanding, okay, what's some of the data? Or is there a major study behind that? Like now, normally with these drugs, or sometimes with devices, there's multiple studies going on, clinical trials and so forth. Just list a couple of the most important ones. And then the competition, the doctors we're going to call on. And this is what we teach in our program. We go into this, but we got to be careful. And that's why I say join our program if you're listening, because sometimes our tendency is just to do what AI, and it's obvious that it's AI, but we need to go in and own the messaging of it. You mentioned something very important, and that is knowing your why and really sharpening up in those STAR answers. Because you can have the perfect business plan, you can know the product, but if we ramble and don't use that STAR framework, sometimes we won't get the job. Do you remember in the interview a time that you used that STAR framework? Do you remember one of the questions that they gave you and how you answered it? If you can, I'm putting you on the spot here, but can you look back there? And what was one of the questions they asked you? Do you remember any of those and how you answered it?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be real honest with you. Both of my interviews were actually really casual.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was nice for me going back to when you had mentioned doing the brag book. I think that's really important too. Every time I have an interview with a hiring manager or a director, I always send a pre-interview email. And it includes my resume, my brag book, and about me. It's all condensed into one. You don't want to be sending them multiple PDFs.
You send it in one PDF. That's another thing we teach, keep it in one PDF. Now I'm curious there, were you doing this before? Or did you learn that from our program?
No, I was doing it before.
Awesome,
but
that's so good.
I really wanted to highlight it because I found when I send these about me pages to these hiring managers, they already know you're qualified, right?
Yes.
You already checked the box. That's why you're interviewing with them, but they want to get to know the real you.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're interviewing, it's kind of hard to get that out of a person. It's hard to ask them about their hobbies when you only have 30 minutes, right? And so by sending this about me page, a lot of times, they'll ask me maybe 10 minutes of the job and, about me, whatnot. But sometimes like the rest of the 20 minutes is just chit chatting about stuff that we're interested in.
Yes.
I remember my very first interview with the director, he had asked me like, what questions do you have about the job? We kind of went back and forth. And then the rest of the time, it was just talking about my journey of visiting all the national parks.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of connect on that. He said he was going to Hawaii, and I'm kind of rambling now, but a lot of times it makes it a lot easier because they already know you're qualified. They just want to get to know you. But with the STAR format, it is important to know, why you tell me about a time, where you've dealt with conflict. I think a lot of times they ask the same 5 questions, especially in pharma and med device, right? When you have a surgeon or a physician, for example, if if you had a bad experience with them or a conflict, how did you resolve that? If you couldn't get in the door, get face-to-face time, how did you go around that? What's the greatest achievement you had? What is one thing you do to practice your time management? All of these things are so important because ideally they just want to know your working process on how to get around these situations and how you will apply it to their job.
That's so true. I love it when you mentioned it's conversational, and I've had interviews like that as well, where it's very conversational. And I would tell our audience, I think what I learned from Vidhi is that she's prepared, but she is also adaptable. So when you start talking about personal things, national parks, you're prepared, but you can adapt, you can read a room and then be conversational.
Right.
And that is so important because some sales reps are very prepared. They know the clinical knowledge, but they don't read the room.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was on a virtual call. The surgeon said, I got 15 minutes. And I remember this MSL, right after he said I only have 15 minutes, she goes into a big slide deck and she's going on to the mission statement of the company and all this stuff and just reading word for word her slide presentation. And I thought to myself, it's so important. You can have all this knowledge, but if we don't read people, if we don't adapt, we're not going to do well. You do both well. And I think you're an excellent, your story of someone with biology background, thinking you're going to medical school, but decide not to. Sales is a great career for so many people and our listeners out there. Okay, tell us about this new role. What are you most excited about working with Hologic?
Yeah, honestly, all of it. Just by talking to the reps alone, I had so much excitement around the role. Everybody was so nice and welcoming. And I think that's another thing that's super important when you're searching for your next role. It might be, well, on paper, it looks like a dream opportunity, right? But if you're not networking, if you're not meeting with the people that you'd be working with, it's kind of hard to, get a good idea of what your day-to-day is going to look like. You don't want to surround yourself with people who, don't have your best interests or, that are going to be difficult to work with. And I think that was one thing that really excited me was everybody was so helpful when I came to them about my case study, when I talked to them about the role itself. They were just so excited to share about their day-to-day and their journey. One thing that's really exciting for me is I'm going to be working with patients with breast cancer. And, I've had a few family members who've been diagnosed and passed away from breast cancer. And so going into this role where I'm in charge of selling devices for early detection treatment for breast cancer is huge. To think that, I can make a difference by being in these cases and, helping these patients in the room is huge.
What a great opportunity.
Yeah.
You can help early detection and help these patients who have breast cancer. I'm excited about this role. I think you will thrive.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier national parks, and I want to keep this kind of fun. We want to get to know you a little bit more personally. And just tell us about that because I'm curious. National parks. How many have you been to?
So there's 63.
Okay.
I've been to 10 so far.
When did you start this?
I started about 2 years ago.
What inspired it?
Honestly, just getting out there. You only live once, right? And there's so many things to see. I think people don't realize that, some of the parks are hard to get to, but they're fairly accessible, right? You don't need to spend money on a huge plane ticket. You don't need to, buy all of these things. You just go and visit them and you see the beauty of nature and the world. And to think that, this is all within the United States, it's great.
What's your favorite you've been to so far?
Oh gosh. I'm going to say 2 because I can't pick. Okay. I just went to Hawaii in January.
Hawaii.
I did. Yep. And they have 2 parks down there. They have Volcanoes Park and then they have it's Haleakala. And I got to do a sunrise hike. So it was great.
I've never been to Hawaii.
It's great. You should go. I went to Maui and then we also went to the Big Island with the volcanoes, but you wake up at, 3 a.m. and you drive up this mountain and you're above the clouds. I think it's like 14 14,000 feet. You're above the clouds and you get to see the sunrise above the clouds. It's great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And then the second one is, have you heard of Dry Tortugas?
I think I have. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's down in the Keys. So you go to Key West and then you get on a ferry and you go to this island in the middle of nowhere, 70 miles off.
And what's the island called again?
Dry Tortugas.
Yes.
Dry turtles.
Okay.
Yeah. Tortugas is turtles in Spanish, but.
What islands is that near?
The Keys.
Okay.
It's 70 miles west of the Keys.
I've been on these cruises where you go like multiple, like you stop at like 5 or 6 islands, but I've never been there.
No, so this island, it's actually an old war fort. It's just like this massive this massive brick hexagon that was used during the war as like a outpost. But you get to go snorkeling and kind of roam around the grounds, and it is beautiful. Beautiful. Wow.
It sounds like you like the ones where there's more sun.
Yeah.
As far as national parks.
The sunshine is always great.
It's nice to escape the gray of Columbus every now and then and see the sunshine. Where do you want to go next? Which national park?
Oh gosh, I think anything out west really, but I think Glacier.
Okay.
I would love to go to Glacier. It looks so crazy in the pictures, but it's so cold. So I might try to go in the summertime.
The good thing about medical sales is, yes, it's hard work, but it does provide freedom. It's people like what I realized when I got into this industry. There was a guy who was always traveling. He was always going to Aruba or Mexico. He had always getting a new motorcycle. He seemed to have more money than the rest of us. And so when I reached out to this friend of mine, I knew he was in medical device sales. And yet at the same time, he still had time to go on vacation and travel. You mentioned going to Hawaii. And this is a good industry. Yes, you work hard, but you keep working hard, you will have freedom. You mentioned, maybe someday you'll get your MBA. Well, my company is J&J and Sanofi that I was working with. They have paid for me to get my MBA part-time online at Johns Hopkins. We can go in for like these short modules. And I'm just going really slowly at it, like one class at a time. But there's that opportunity that you don't even have to pay if you want to get an MBA at Ohio State or maybe executive or online at Johns Hopkins or wherever. Let your company pay for that. People are wanting to break in. They're like, I need another degree. Okay, you're going to spend, thousands of dollars. And there's no guarantee that you're going to make more money. In the job market today, I think people are looking more for, your skill set and also experience. Get experience over a degree, right?
Yes.
So that would be my encouragement. And then you can always work on it, get that later if you desire. You may not want to do it. So, okay, let's talk about Columbus. You grew up here. What do you like to do in Columbus when you're not working?
Oh gosh. Well, it is the winter time right now, so kind of have to stay in, but I do love playing pickleball.
Pickleball.
Yeah. I grew up playing.
Where do you play pickleball?
I go to Lifetime for indoor pickleball, but
in Dublin?
Dublin. Yeah.
Okay.
But they also have this facility called Paddle Taps and Pickle and Chill. And you can rent out the courts and play there too. Yeah. It's great. It's really cheap. You can go with some friends or you can play with other people that are looking for people to play with. But, yeah, it's great. It's a great way to get cardio. I played tennis my entire life.
You did.
And so, transitioning from tennis to pickleball, it was fairly easy, and I'm not that old, but it's definitely easier on the joints.
You're a young woman. Do you miss tennis or are you all in pickleball?
I do miss tennis. Yeah, I wish I could play more. With tennis too, though, it's an outdoor sport, right? And with Columbus being gloomy and gray for 6 months, it's hard to get outside sometimes. So with pickleball, it's faster paced. The court's not as big. There's more opportunities to play. So that's why I've kind of transitioned over. But yeah, I do miss it every now and then.
Well, maybe I'll see you on the courts. My wife and I, we loved pickleball when we were dating. Then we had littles.
Yeah.
And we go to Lifetime in the summertime.
Oh yeah, with the pools and stuff. Yeah.
And we put the kids in there. But we've I know my nephews, they love pickleball. We were going to play up there at Lifetime. So that's fun that you get to do that. Okay. Let's just close on this. There's someone wanting to break into medical sales or pharmaceutical sales. any last advice that you would give that person? Maybe there's someone who's on the fence about joining this program.
Yeah.
They feel stuck.
Yeah.
Like they have tried to get interviews and they just have not made it. Mm-hmm. They haven't made it as far as you have, right? Mm-hmm. What are some pieces of advice? It can be anything that you would give to that person, or maybe it's someone who's an on-site specialist. Mm-hmm. And they have tried to apply internally. Maybe it's Stryker, maybe it's somewhere else, and they're trying to get promoted into a sales rep, and they just can't seem to be getting far in that. Any, last pieces of advice you would give to that person?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say the biggest thing is don't give up. You just need one yes. If you find yourself, for example, like me, I was trying to interview and get into sales for about 2.5 years, and I wasn't making any movement, right? I would get to the final interview, then they hit me with, oh, you presented yourself great, but you don't have XYZ experience or some other reason of why I didn't get the job. And I think the biggest thing is you just need somebody to look at your talents and take a chance on you. But at the same time, you need to be able to invest or reflect on yourself and see how you can best sell yourself. If you're not taking your experiences that you already have and using that to translate into sales, that is the biggest thing that you need to change. And I think, with joining the group and having this community of, hey, this is where I think you can do better. I know with our group chat, we send videos to each other. We critique ourselves on our answers and we look over each other's resumes. I think that's the biggest thing is, having that community. If you feel like you're stuck and you're not progressing, it's great to join the program. I think with me having that community and having somebody who was able to kind of coach me and see, hey, I think you're great, but these are things that you kind of need to fix and maybe try again and you'll get the role. I think that was the biggest thing.
And what we are finding in our program is we're getting, when I first started this, I was thinking about people just really trying to break in. What we have now is a foundation of people who already have a skill set. They're proving themselves. And it's often you all, like you've already been working as an on-site specialist at Stryker. Mm-hmm. We have people like yourself are the ones that are often showing up, doing the work, showing up to our live event. We had a live event here, interacting with others. It's the people who don't upload the videos, who don't do the brag books, who don't create those 30, 60, 90s that we see. So our program, we're seeing a high success rate, but even with that, it's not 100% guarantee if you don't do the work, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, and I think it's a shock to a lot of people how much work goes into the preparation in this particular industry. But I think the future is bright for you. I think someday you're going to just keep moving up the ladder. You got a bright future. I would say in the future years, let that company pay for your MBA. Just keep moving up the ladder. You'll have more and more opportunity. And when you get to the top, please remember us, all right? Keep us in mind, all right? So, Vidhi, thank you so much for joining MedicalSalesU.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave.
If you're trying to break into medical device or pharmaceutical sales, or maybe you're ready to reinvent yourself into a new specialty like oncology, our program, MedicalSalesU, can help.
I'm extremely grateful for Dave Starrett and his program, MedicalSalesU.
I'm now making $60,000 more than I was as a pharmacist.
I highly recommend the program. I just landed an incredible dream job.
Our members come from every background: nurses, pharmacists, teachers, athletes, and they're breaking in fast, averaging $151,875 in 11 and a half weeks. Many are earning over $200K. The industry is changing lives. You can change lives. Check us out at MedicalSalesU. Invest in yourself, and let's get you in the game.